All right, let's see if we're live. I don't think we're live. We are live. Wow, look at that. We are live. Holy shit. I figured it out, boys. Richard is live, warming up for his debate. Mike Brock. All right, let's see if Zap.stream works. I'm on Elon's platform. Looks like Zaps.stream isn't working. I've never had this many issues with it. It's kind of lame. Wow. Revolution won't have good UX. How about that shit? How about that shit? Hopefully the audio is fine. I assume it probably is. Okay. Wow, 15 views. Look at that. All right, guys. So we're gonna go live with Mike Brock in like 26 minutes. Oh wow. Okay. So this is like really stupid. Talking about streaming UX. Let me fix that graphic. Flip horizontal. There we go. All right. I don't know why it does this. So I'm going from OBS to another streaming platform, back to Twitter, to Elon's platform. Zap.stream's not working. Never had issues with it before. Guess it's not wanting to work tonight. It's just going to be slightly less of a revolution. Revolution won't have good UX. Oh, look, it just flipped. We got a little bit of a delay. We're looking at like 15-second delay from my typewriter. But yeah, we got quite the setup here. I don't know what to expect from Mike Brock. Been doing some debate prep, getting ready for this. Been working hard all day. I listening to some Mike Brock. I mean, one of the things that's kind of amazing about Mike Brock is you go through his interviews and he looks like dramatically different in most of his interviews. It's kind of crazy, actually. So, like, you know, he's got his Twitter profile picture. It looks like he's been taking some Ozempic. He's pretty thin. You go back to his What Bitcoin Did interview, and he was a little bit chubbier. So that was pre-Ozempic. That was before it hit the market. We all know that Mike's not smoking cigarettes. I'll address that with him on the debate tonight. But I went back to like another older interview. He looked like an entirely different guy. Like he had no facial hair. His hair was different. He looked like he'd gotten a bunch of Botox and maybe plastic surgery. I couldn't really tell. But you know, like I don't change that much over time. I mean, you have to look at me anytime in like the last 20 years, and I essentially look like the same person. I don't even think I've aged that much, which is kind of crazy. I look like the same person, but like Mike, in the 3 different interviews that I watched of him, just constantly changing. I wonder what that's about. I think it's just like these Silicon Valley guys, you know, they're always like pumping themselves full of random shit. There's always like the new fad. Those like, you know, go get plastic surgery, take Ozempic, you know, do whatever. And I'm just not that way. You know, I smoke cigarettes. That's what I do. That's the supplements that I take. I smoke cigarettes and work at my typewriter and, you know, go for walks and get some sunlight. I listen to Stephen Lubka a little bit. But yeah, for people tuning in, we'll get started here in a little bit. I was a little bit afraid that Mike would flake, but it sounds like he's committed to the interview. Sounds like he's ready for it. Let's see if Zap.stream's working. Looks like Zaps.stream is not working. Lame. I'll have to figure out who does Zap.stream and give him a little talk. But yeah, let me tell you about my warm up here. For the debate, I was reading some of Mike Brock's Substack articles. It was kind of interesting. Uh, it was kind of interesting, but listen to some of his interviews. As it admiring how he looks like he's a shapeshifter or something over time, constantly changing into different people, or looking entirely different, getting fat, getting super skinny, going on the Ozempic. I mean, one of the things I'm really concerned about in this debate is that Mike has not prepared for it like I have. I watched some of his interviews. I read a bunch of his stuff. I listened to him talk about like why Ayn Rand is terrible and why objectivism is stupid. And it's an interesting debate. It's going to be an interesting debate. I don't want to get into my points too much yet, but I thought the best thing that I could do is open up an Atlas Shrugged and start reading it. So I read Atlas Shrugged for like about an hour before I went live on the stream, drank some coffee. It's really late out here in New York. Really, really late. Past my bedtime. Almost 10 o'clock. Should be going live here in 20 minutes. I wonder how much Mike has got in him. I guess we'll kind of figure out what the tone of this debate will look like once we get into it. But yeah, I didn't even know that this was a thing. I didn't even know that you could do conversations on Substack. You know, I've always kind of turned my nose up to Substack. I think Substack is kind of like the platform for like wannabe journalists that don't have the proper credentials. You know, it used to be back in the day, you wanted to be a journalist, you had to go work for like a CIA ran newspaper or something like that. And then the internet came around and disintermediated it, right? And people started spinning up their own website. So I have my own website, which I think is way cooler than having a Substack. And part of the reason why I don't really care about Substack is because it's all CIA kind of monitored, like fiat rails bullshit to be able to accept donations. There's no like way to integrate BTC Pay server into it. It's just it's not very friendly for cypherpunks. You know what I mean? This conversation isn't very friendly for cypherpunks in general because I'm having to use an app on my phone, but you know, whatever. My wife showed me how to do it. I'm not very technical or tech literate, but you know, this is like, it's why you get married. You know what I mean? Like, you need somebody that complements you. You can't do everything yourself. There's a division of labor for a reason. You know, my wife can spend the time learning about all these doodads. I mean, you heard me. I can't figure out why this stupid streaming app doesn't work. It's a miracle I'm even on Twitter. She figured that out for me. But yeah, I mean, this is like why I got married, because I fill an important role in the family, provide for my family. I bring home cartons of cigarettes every week. I work my ass off for it. And she shows me how to use my technology and how to get my voice out to the world. And like, we've got a pretty good system down where, you know, I type out all my thoughts on a typewriter and then she transposes it onto, you know, one of these whiz bangs. I think they call them computers. And that's how we got to get it out there. But anyways, the way that journalism works today is it's not Substack. Substacks is like where the betas hang out. Like Mike. It's where the betas hang out. The real frontier for journalism, and we all have to give big props to Adam Curry. If you're sitting here listening to this broadcast, I would implore you to clap your hands right now. Give a good clap for Adam Curry, because Adam Curry, he's like Prometheus, you know? It used to be that the only way to broadcast your voice out there for the masses to hear was to get on a syndicated news channel. And I guess you could do AM radio too. But AM radio is kind of like Substack, you know? It's like the medium for the betas. There's like a handful of guys that have done well on AM radio. There's like Sean Hannity and, you know, Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and, you know, guys like that. But they're all betas at the end of the day. They're all betas. The real frontier is podcasting. And what essentially Adam Curry did is he stole the fire from the gods and gave it to us. All of us could now become broadcasters, spreading our voice out there. And this is why it's so important to be a podcast listener, not just be a podcaster. I think everybody should start a podcast. That's my opinion. That's the only way that the price of Bitcoin can go up. It's a very logical, you know, like a lot of these guys come up with the price models, like the Giovanni guy with Bitcoin Power Law. It's stupid. You can poke holes in it. You can't predict the price. But one thing is apparent, it should be self-evident to everybody listening to this broadcast, which is that if you start a podcast, you'll at least get a handful of people to listen to it. You've got your mom, hopefully you got your wife or your girlfriend or the girl that you want to be your girlfriend. Your grandma, maybe your grandma wants to learn about crypto because Donald Trump's talking about playing with your Bitcoins. You're going to have at least a few listeners. And if we all start podcasts, we're going to get everybody listening to Bitcoin podcasts, inevitably, through brute force. And it's going to make the price of Bitcoin go up. The only reason to not start a Bitcoin podcast is if you hate yourself and you want the price of Bitcoin to go down. That's the only reason to not start a podcast. So I don't know why you haven't started a podcast yet. But not just that, you shouldn't just be podcasting. You should be listening to podcasts. You should be listening to 40 hours per week. And the reason why you should be listening to 40 hours per week is so that you have a good understanding of what's going on in the world, and you need entropy. It can't just all be macro. It can't just all be, you know, grumpy people, grumpy Bitcoiners talking about doomer stuff. It can't just be Marty Ben and Matt Odell. You need entropy. You need a broad view of the world. You need to cover a lot of ground. And you can cover a lot of ground in a lot of time, or in 40 hours per week. You can listen to Bitcoin podcasts with podcasters you don't agree with. You can listen to the Progressive Bitcoin podcast. You can listen to Danny Knowles and What Bitcoin Did. And honestly, I haven't listened to him yet, but I'm sure it's probably pretty good. I feel like Danny's probably a lot more based than Peter. But I don't know, because I haven't listened to it yet. But I should listen to it. I just haven't prioritized it on my 40 hours per week. But like, you know, if you're out there, and I assume out of our 104 listeners, most of them are men. Sorry for like the 2 women that are listening. I'll address you here in a minute. But to the 102 men listening to this broadcast, it's your job to provide for your family. And in order to provide for your family, you have to know what's going on in the world. You have to be aware. You have to know about the macro environment. You have to know about the cutting edge of privacy tech. You have to know about the memes. You have to know about the trends. You need to know. You need to hear Matt and Marty talking about people getting harassed about Teslas. You need to know all this shit. And you're not going to know it if you're not listening to Bitcoin podcasts, because what's the alternative? You listen to AM radio and get bombarded with gold commercials. All that shit's meant for boomers. Boomers don't know how to use their iPhones. You shouldn't be consuming that type of content. What are you going to do? Watch Netflix? Get bombarded with woke bullshit? The tip of the spear as far as useful information right now is Bitcoin podcasts. It's the tip of the spear. That's where the action's happening. And so you owe it to yourself. If you have self-respect, if you care about your family, then you should be listening to 40 HPW. Now, to the women listening to this, it's also important for you. And, I understand that everybody's an individual and they have to determine how things work for themselves. And so I kind of make generalizations sometimes about men providing for the families. I wouldn't be upset, if you're a badass woman out there providing for your family. You're being a sugar mama for some orange cell. If that's your thing, go for it. I don't really care. It's not my thing. I'm the provider for my family. But the reason why it's important for you to listen to 40 Hours of Bitcoin podcast is so that you can support your husband or your boyfriend and you can relate to them. Listening to 40 HPWs for everybody. They say Bitcoin's for everybody. I don't really think that's the case. Bitcoin is for those who do the proof of work. Those that listen to 40 Hours of Bitcoin podcast a week. This is how we change the world. This is how you change yourself, more importantly. You change the world by changing yourself. There's so much projection, and I feel like this is like what I'm going to get into with Mike Brock, is he's going to project his worldview onto other people, and he's going to condone people for not thinking the way that he does. And he's going to talk about like how he needs to coerce people that don't think the way that he does, and then use the term democracy. That's my prediction of where this conversation is going to go. We need to coerce people because of democracy. I don't think that way. It's why I like the shitcoins. I don't really engage with the shitcoins. There's like one shitcoin that I hold, and I probably should get out of it, which is Monero. And it's just because somebody decided to send me, is that Linkin Park Rules guy, he sent me some Monero. And I haven't gone about trying to figure out how to convert it to Bitcoin, but it makes more sense to be in Bitcoin. But I don't really care about Bitcoin maximalism because I don't care about identity politics. I think it's a waste of time. I think the shitcoins provide a tremendous utility to our society, which is it makes dumb people poor. Because I don't think it's our job to convince dumb people to stop being dumb unless they ask for help and we care about them. That's it. We can give useful information to people that we care about, but you can essentially put useful information out there for people by starting your own Bitcoin podcast, and they have the choice to listen to it or not. But this is one of the things that I think I'm going to get into Mike Brock, which is that he just has a very low opinion of people. And the problem with having a low opinion of people is when you think that they're stupid, they're going to act like they're stupid. I think people are stupid, but I just don't really care. That's the difference. That's the difference between me and a lot of people. I just don't really care if people are stupid because I know that they're adults and it's their responsibility to take care of themselves. So if you want to go play with Ethereum and lose a bunch of money, go ahead. Be my guest. I don't really care. I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of time. But people waste their time in all sorts of ways. All sorts of ways. How many people go to the casino? There's a conference in Vegas. How many people are going to go waste a bunch of money at the casino in Vegas? Should I be going and campaigning to tell people to not play blackjack in Vegas? Is that how I should be using my time when I'm there? Or should I be having a good time, smoking cigarettes and hanging out with Bitcoin podcasters? I don't really give a shit if you go waste your money at slots. Go ahead. I don't really give a shit if you go waste your money playing with Ethereum. You go use Coinbase instead of Strike or Swan Bitcoin. I don't care. It's not my prerogative. You're a fucking adult and you can make decisions for yourself. We're about 7 minutes out from the interview. He didn't really give me there we go. All right, I'm accepting it. All right, let me figure out how to turn on my video. Give me just a second, guys. It's about to get real. Wow. What's going on, Mike? I don't know if it's your end or my end that's having the audio issues. Technical difficulties. Let me see how I can. How do I message you? Revolution won't have good UX. Your audio is coming super weird through. My end. I kind of can hear you. I'm not sure what the. Give me just a second, Mike. Check. Here, let me leave and come back. Let's try that. Oh, fuck. Alright. My video link has expired. Can you send me another link? Why? Well, we got about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't think it's on my end that his voice was all screwed up, but it probably is. Yeah, it should be coming through fine. Alright. Here we go. There we go. I can hear you, but it's like coming through weird. I don't know what the issue is. It's probably, it might be my setup, but I can hear you fine. It's not working. It's not working again. Here, let me leave and come back. I'm gonna try and restart my phone and see if that fixes it. My apologies, dude. All right. I think it's probably Substack. All these whiz bangs and doodads and apps, it's just a bummer. It's all a bummer. All right, here we go. Restarting the phone. Might be time for a good song. Let me see. All right, phone has restarted. While I figure this out with Mike, let's listen to this.
No one has ever lost who chose to be more than a bum. Learning to use your brains instead of suckling off their thumb. To build a better world, you have to use your head. Don't you want to leave a legacy after you are dead? Why rest when the world is yours to take? You look around and everything's all gay and fake.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect. All right.
What's up,
All right,
Mike?
perfect. That's better. All right, how you doing? All right, so promise my audience I go live right now.
I'm ready.
I mean, I wasn't expecting you to be in a mask and with the audio distorted, or whatever.
This is just me, dude.
All right, man. All right, fuck. All right, let's go live. Let's just get into it. Let's just go live. We'll let people kind of collect in. It's going to be recorded. We're connecting. We've only done this once before. I'm doing this more on the regular now. Connecting. Are we not live? Why are we not live? I'm on like oh, there we go. We have one viewer. All right. Here we go. People are joining 7, 9. Wow, a bunch of people. Hey everyone. People filing in here to watch a live conversation. It will also be recorded so everyone can catch up on everything we're about to talk about. Cool. All right. Happy to just like maybe give a few minutes to let people collect here. We're now at 25 viewers and growing.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. It's a beautiful, sunny, and warm day here in Southern California, here in Los Angeles, where I find myself right now.
Nice.
My home base.
I don't really like Los Angeles personally, but a lot of people do. I won't say.
I love Los Angeles. We can talk about that. We can talk about my love for Los Angeles. I love talking about Los Angeles. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, I mean, why don't we just like kind of maybe get started? This is recorded, so people can always catch the beginning of this. I wanted to first of all, welcome everyone to my first episode of Counterpoint, a live coherence series. This is something I've been planning for like a long time. Basically, it's a new project I'm launching through Notes from the Circus. The idea behind it's very simple. If I publish something and someone believes I've gotten it wrong, misunderstood the stakes, missed the structure, or simply overstated my case, they can challenge me, like right here in public. I'm willing to be called out on my bullshit. If it turns out to be bullshit, we'll see whether the coherence of my argument holds. We live in a moment where I think disagreement often collapses. I got an itch on my nose right here. Let me just take care of that. We live in a moment where disagreement often collapses into either spectacle or silence. And I want Counterpoint to be a third space, a space for rigorous, serious disagreement. I'm okay. Ideas can get tested and not just shared, where argument becomes a tool for clarity, just not not necessarily just performance for applause. And this isn't about winning. I'm not here to win a debate. It's about coherence. It's about truth seeking towards a civic discipline. So tonight, I have invited someone to challenge a recent piece that I wrote. Our guest here today is Richard Grieser. You can see that he has chosen to conceal his identity. I'm fine with that, audience. So hopefully you'll be fine with that as well. He's the chief editor of Bugle News. He's a podcaster. I think you're obviously a big proponent of Bitcoin and defender of Austrian economics, from what I can tell. You responded to my latest essay, Clear Thinking v. Bitcoin Cult, which is part of my Clear Thinking series, where I, as a moral and epistemic philosopher, analyze various people and their arguments and give my take on whether I think that they present a coherent or, in this case, incoherent view. And instead of arguing back and forth on social media, we agreed to have a conversation here in the open. So here's my position, stated clearly and without hostility. I believe that Bitcoin is valuable and potentially important piece of financial technology. I've worked in the space. I understand its utility. I think it has a non-zero expectation value. We can talk about what that means as a technical term, as a value, as a hedge against like political risk. I gave a talk on this at the Bitcoin Policy Conference earlier last year. On this point, you can probably find that on YouTube if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on that. But my critique here is actually not about Bitcoin as a tool. This is actually not about Bitcoin as a technology. I don't want to actually talk about that. It's about Bitcoin maximalism as an ideology. I believe that Bitcoin maximalism has become something structurally different. It's something more totalizing than a monetary thesis. It now functions as I have said and argued in my piece, a secular cult. It has prophets, it has sacred texts, it has moral hierarchies based on time preference, it has ritualized speech, and it even has what a philosopher like myself would call a eschatological vision of the world remade in a form that is often described as hyper-Bitcoinization. I believe this ideology is intellectually incoherent, politically dangerous, and morally unserious. I see historical parallels with objectivism, which is Ayn Rand's philosophy, which is expressed through various pieces of fiction that she wrote, such as The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. And if you read that and all 36 pages of John Galt's speech, which I also critiqued in another piece called Clear Thinking v. Ayn Rand, I also think that within this Bitcoin cult that I'm calling a cult, I believe we see fascist aesthetic frameworks. I believe this shows through very vividly in the last half of the Bitcoin Standard and Saifedean's book. And I also have a general critique about the technological deterministic view and techno-authoritarian turn that I think a lot of people in this movement, I believe, have taken. Now, they might object to that and say, I'm not authoritarian, I'm libertarian or anarcho-capitalist or whatever. I have my own critiques there. We could talk about that. But I believe these parallels are worth naming. And so, that's my general position. I'm not here to provoke. I'm here to be held accountable for what I wrote and to hold the argument together in real time. So, Richard, I'd love to hear your response to everything I just said.
Well, I actually agree with you on a lot of things. And I did appreciate your article today. So the little spat that we had on Twitter was a disagreement. So I feel like to have a valid voice in this industry in general, you have to listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week. But
why? Why? Why do we have to listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin? I only have so much time in a week. I do a lot of things. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of writing. How could one possibly commit themselves that much to one single topic and have a fulfilled life? Well, I asked that as a philosopher, actually.
Well, I think I was kind of talking about this earlier with some people. I think one of our jobs You know, like my job as a man, as a husband, as a father, show up for my family and provide for them. And I don't think I can
Yeah.
adequately do that unless I understand the world
Yeah.
properly. And like, why
Yeah.
40 hours? It's because you need entropy, because one isn't just enough. Like, you know, there's like one person, like, you know, Lynn Alden's great, right? She's super hot. She's great.
Yeah.
She's
I love
smart.
Lynn. Lynn and I have been actually chatting between the two of us. We've had a little kind of conversation going. I mean, I'm not going to like say what we've been talking about, but Lynn and I know each other, and we've had long conversations.
That's awesome, dude. When Lynn slides into
Yeah.
DMs, it's great. It just makes my
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, you need entropy. You know what I mean? And like,
What do you mean by need? What do you mean by need entropy?
well,
I've
you
written a
can't.
lot about entropy in my philosophical work, so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, you can't just only consume macro, right? You
Mm-hmm.
need a wide variety of Bitcoin podcasts. But I think where Bitcoin podcasts are valuable is like, you know, people have been right over and over and over again. And like most of the other media forms have been wrong over and over and over again. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to, before
What?
I don't want to expand on this too much because I want to get into like the actual debate of substance. But
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about your views on Austrian economics in particular. I am a harsh critic of Austrian economics, a harsh critic of Murray Rothbard. I should warn you that I am a sophisticated philosopher who has very methodically and rigorously deconstructed Mises and Rothbard's praxeological argument. So if you think I should warn you that if you assume that I'm unfamiliar with the arguments that have been made by these people, including Hans Hermann Hoppe and his his book, Democracy, the God That Failed, that I've also critiqued. I'm not stupid about these arguments. I mean,
totally.
I get a lot of Bitcoiners come to me and they tell me these things. They're like, did you know about the Cantillon effect? Did you know that, have you heard of Gresham's law? And it's like, yes, I have. It turns out that I'm a sophisticated, I'm a sophisticated person who has actually read a lot, and I have critiqued these. Actually, 20 years ago, I was an anarcho-capitalist libertarian, 20-year-old who was reading Rothbard and all of these arguments. So, I mean, I'm always surprised that people think that I just haven't heard these arguments before, and that's why I don't agree. I have heard the arguments, and I have critiqued them at length, and so I should just So I'm curious to hear perhaps where my critiques go wrong on that.
Well, here's two things I want to say real quick. So I want to argue with you about objectivism.
Okay, let's talk about objectivism.
But before
I spent 3 days writing a whole piece on it.
Before we get into that, I want to start with the things that I agree with you on. So I agree with you on the Bitcoin maximalism cult side of things. But I think I believe that for different reasons than you do.
Okay.
I believe that Bitcoin maximalism is a form of identity politics, and it's a form of collectivism and collectivist thinking in order to get people to turn their brains off. And it's essentially a marketing scheme to get people to use inferior products to Coinbase.
This seems very different than your stance earlier on Twitter and Substack, to be honest with you. Okay.
Well, I feel like most people come to that conclusion if they listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week, because you need the entropy.
Okay.
You need to.
I'm not going to listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin, and I will not endorse that for my audience. Just to be clear.
But yeah, I mean, essentially, how I see this conversation going is I'm the hero of an Ayn Rand novel, and you're the villain of an Ayn Rand novel.
I'm okay. Oh, so I'm a moocher.
I'm a moocher. Yeah, I mean, I'm more so thinking of Ellsworth Toohey in The Fountainhead.
I'm Ellsworth. Okay. Okay. I'll go with that. All right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna think about. I mean, I did read Atlas Shrugged again. I spent some time reskimming it before I read my piece, so I'm gonna sit with that for a second and come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my podcast.
All right.
I tell my podcast listeners to listen to to read Atlas Shrugged twice a year. I think it's like a great act of self-care.
Why do you think it's a great book? I think it's like the dumbest fucking book ever.
Well, I think it's a great act of self-care.
Why?
Because it's building your own self-esteem. Like one of the cruxes of the book, one of the main characters of the book, and I don't think a lot of scholars talk, I wouldn't consider myself a scholar. I'm a credentialed journalist. But
okay, you're a credentialed journalist?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And
okay. What credential can credential like by what organization?
I have a bachelor's in journalism.
Okay. All right. Got it.
So yeah, I mean, like one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is that smoking cigarettes is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Atlas Shrugged.
What? It killed my father. So I mean, my father was a chain smoker, and it destroyed his heart. And so I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but you know, ever since they started banning cigarettes, cancer rates have been going through the roof. There's tons of ways to die.
True. That's not true. That's not true.
Yes, it is.
Cancer rates are down.
No, they're up.
Could you provide some evidence for that? Can you cite some evidence? I'd be curious to see that.
You cite evidence.
Like where can I look? Where can I look? I'd love to see where.
You first. You first.
No, I mean, you made the claim that cancer rates are way up. I mean, that's the proper, like anyone who's like ever done like formal debate, like Oxford style debating or whatever. Like, I mean, like, I'm not, this is an Oxford style debating. We don't have but I mean, any debate format, like generally it's considered good form to when the person makes the claim to then back it up with evidence if the person challenges it.
Yeah, but
not to force the person challenge. That's called reversing the burden of proof.
But I'm not a scholar. I'm not an academic. But you made a
claim. You made a claim that cancer rates have gone way up since people stopped smoking, which is like a pretty, like, I mean, most people do not believe that. So you're making a claim which is exceptional to the generally accepted belief by the vast majority of the people. So you're essentially making a claim that that's a bullshit perception, that the majority view is wrong. Maybe we've been lied to by the establishment and the mainstream media or whatever you want to say, but like, okay, that's fine. But you need to like a good way to prove that we've all been lied to would just be to show us evidence that we've all been lied to. Like, I mean, like that's why the burden of proof now rests with you.
But I'm not an academic. or a scholar. I'm a journalist.
But you made that claim, and it's like a pretty, like, I think most people would recognize that's I mean, most people would like disagree with. I think most people would disagree. You disagree that most people would disagree with that?
Yeah, but I don't really care what most people think. I'm using New York Times publishing standards.
I do. If like most people want to, if most people want to like do something that I think is morally bad, like I care a lot about that. I want to convince people otherwise. So, I mean, like I live in a society and people's opinions matter. Like, I mean, people voted for the guy that I didn't want them to vote for. So, I mean, it does matter what people think. It affects my life. It's affecting it right now. My stock portfolio has taken a huge fucking hit because this motherfucker started a global trade war. So obviously I care about other people's opinions because they fucking affect me.
But that's an example that you just gave where you think most people are wrong.
Sure.
Most people.
I don't think most people like Donald Trump. In fact, I think that a lot of people hated both of their choices and thought some people may have convinced themselves that he was the lesser evil or something. I don't know that their votes were approbation, but like, sure. I mean, look, I mean, there's a lot of things that like, yeah, I mean, are there things that a majority of people believe that I disagree with? Yes. I mean, that's true of like everyone. I think you could probably find that is true of everyone, but to say that like I don't care what the majority of people think, I mean, in a political society, I mean, a society where you have politics and elections and an entire political economy, like, you know, that turns on people's opinions. I mean, it seems pretty like, I mean, it seemed irresponsible. Like, for your own interests and the interests of those you care about to not care about what most people think. That just doesn't make sense. That seems like an antisocial stance.
Maybe.
Like, if you don't care what most people think, then like, why are you even trying to convince people to like Bitcoin? Most people don't think that Bitcoin is the future of money. So you're saying you don't care what most people think. So why take the time to convince them otherwise?
I'm not trying to convince anybody anything. I believe people are adults. No.
What's Fugle News's purpose then?
To report the news.
For what? What is the purpose if you're not trying to convince anyone of everything?
We're reporting the news. We've got an audience that likes us. We're not going for the majority. There's people that we're serving that like us. But we're not trying to convince anybody of anything because we think people are adults and they can think for themselves and make up their own minds. That's kind of like the crux of the objectivist. And it's kind of why I reject Bitcoin maximalism as identity politics collectivist movement. I see it as a form of brainwashing through tribalism. Like one of the things you said earlier is that most people didn't like either choice. Why is that an adequate thing to accept? If you don't like either choice and you're getting screwed either way.
I mean, there's a lot of times I don't like either choice. Like if I get cancer, like in the choices between chemotherapy and dying of cancer, those are two bad choices, but one is better than the other.
But if you listen to Bitcoin,
we're faced with choices like this all the time. It's just called living in the world.
But if you listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week, you would know that there's more than two choices.
There's more than two. What's the other choice? What was the other choice on November 3rd?
No. Between chemotherapy and dying of cancer.
What's the third choice there?
Well, maybe you should go listen to 40 hours.
How does Bitcoin have a give me a third choice on a cancer diagnosis?
I'll prescribe you 40 hours of Jack Cruz podcast.
And that will cure my cancer.
Yes, it'll cure your cancer,
dude. I mean, like I what? Like, what are you talking about?
Do your homework. Come back to me.
What do you mean? Do my homework? What do you mean? What do you like? Explain it to me. Like this sounds like something that someone should get a fucking Nobel Prize for. Like what? Like what? I mean, like what are we talking about?
Cold hard facts.
What?
But anyways, let's get on the topic.
If this guy has cured cancer, like I want to tell the fucking world. I mean, he should like the hero of the century.
Well, I don't think that's the case because there's a bunch of collectivists out there that just walk in lockstep and they don't think for themselves, and the TV tells them that.
Do you think I don't think for myself? Do you think I'm like what is it like? Let's just get to the crux of it. I mean, I'm representing a view here. Do you believe my view is simply the recycled entrails of what they have told me to think, or is that what you think?
Well, do you smoke cigarettes and listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week?
No, I do not do either of those things. Why is that fucking relevant to whether I think for myself?
Oh man, it's important. There's a lot of people out there. So let me ask you this, Mike. So how do you judge the difference between?
Ask me.
How do you judge the difference between an NPC and a sentient being?
What the fuck does that mean? I mean, I know what non-playable character means, obviously. I understand the video game MEF reference, but that just like, what the fuck? I mean, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, do I try to categorize other human beings into NPCs and not NPCs? No, I don't do that. That seems stupid. Like, I think humans are humans, and I treat them as humans, and I try to meet them where they are. And I try to understand them where they are. I'm an empathetic person. But you listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week, and you believe that you were enlightened to know more than, say, someone like me who reads, I don't know, I read scientific papers, I read philosophy papers, I write a lot, I read a lot, I read a lot of books. I mean, I guess I could see if 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts would give me the same amount of information. I don't think so. I think that would I'd be surprised if I would then be able to turn around and write, sophisticated, essays on philosophy, political science, political economy, geopolitics, history, just from listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe I'd be able to do that.
Well,
but,
you
I don't
should
think
also
so.
be reading Atlas Shrugged twice a year, front to cover.
Why the fuck? Why would I read Atlas Shrugged twice a year?
Because you need to take a break from Bitcoin podcast.
Why? What the fuck does that mean? Like, what? Why? Like, tell me about Atlas Shrugged. I want to hear more about this. I want to hear more about your love for Atlas Shrugged.
Well, I mean, one of the things I like about Atlas Shrugged is cigarettes are a main character in the story.
Are you trolling me? Is this a troll?
No, this is a debate on objectivism versus altruism. And your Ellsworth too.
Cigarettes are okay. Oh, I agree. There's a lot of smoking, and Atlas Shrugged, and Ayn Rand was a big smoker. I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
I mean, no, there's no,
Rand,
absolutely no disagreement there. But what does that have to fucking do with anything? It's a fucking cigarette.
But let's go back to the NPC question. So, like, do you think NPCs realize that they're NPCs?
What? I just told you that I don't consider any human beings NPCs. That's stupid.
Why?
That's stupid.
But there's tons of people that you agree with that you think are dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are stupid. I don't think they're NPCs.
Okay, we're getting
playable character.
We're getting caught in the semantics. So you think stupid people?
No, I don't think we're getting. NPC suggests that they have no personal agency. They don't make choices for themselves. They just do whatever their people tell them to do, or whatever some sort of like underlying or implicit programming tells them to do. That is like fucking condescending as fuck. And I know I do not hold that position. Do I think people are stupid and uninformed? Yeah, of course they are. Like, I'm stupid and uninformed about some things. As smart as I am, there's things I don't know, and I'm willing to admit that, right? Like, I don't know I don't know the first fucking thing about, like, I don't know, let's think about something I don't know about. I don't know about like I don't know about like genetic science. I don't know the first fucking thing about how, like, gene printers work. I mean, I have like I conceptually understand what DNA is, and I have some like workable knowledge around like how protein folding works and the cardinality of like, of like protein sequences and how they like, it's like there's like a right-handedness to it, and that's how like genes get copied by the ribosomes. I had like some of that. Like, I paid a little bit of attention in that, but like I don't fucking know how actual information is encoded in DNA. I wouldn't pretend to. I would look at it if I, and I would like read about it if I wanted to. But like, so I mean, I'm stupid about that. Fine. Like, I'm stupid about genetic science. Like, lots of people are stupid about things.
But you don't believe that there's people that aren't sentient, that have the inability to think for themselves.
Do you think for yourself?
I know I think for myself. I listen to.
How do you know that you think for yourself?
Because I smoke cigarettes and I feel pretty good about myself.
Because you smoke cigarettes? What? What the fuck does that have to do with thinking for yourself?
I'm a big
like, have you like I mean, what I mean, like, I don't know. Do I have to give you like a crash course in Aristotle or something here? Like, I mean, like the truth value of statements is like independent of like the person making them. Like, what the fuck does a cigarette have to do with this concept of like thinking for oneself?
Like, I know you have a much higher IQ than me, and I'm not going to pretend that that's not the case, that I'm somehow, smarter than you, but I still think my arguments.
I'm not trying to prove I'm smarter than you. I'm actually asking you very fair questions and like giving you opportunities to answer.
How do I know that I think for myself?
Yeah,
because I read Ayn Rand, smoke cigarettes.
You read Ayn Rand. I mean, like, I've read Ayn Rand too. I mean, I don't know that proves that I think for myself.
But you don't read it as much as I do.
Yeah, I don't read it twice a year. Why the fuck would I read some like fucking like it's basically like it's basically like Ayn Rand like basically got so fucking afraid like from whatever like trauma she had around the Soviet Union and communism in Russia, that she basically like worked her way into a giant slippery slope fallacy that if you allowed any kind of like government intervention in the economy, it would ultimately like metastasize and I guess like asymptote towards like totalitarianism necessarily. And there, I mean, like, it was like this, like just like this weird, like fucking like reactionary, like nonsensical, slippery slope fallacy that like forms like the bedrock of her thinking. And it's like crazy and nonsense. It's obviously not true, empirically not true. We've actually seen periods of reform. Maggie Thatcher came to power in the 1980s in the UK and basically like engaged in a whole bunch of deregulation and shrunk the welfare state and broke the trade unions. Apparently that should never be able to happen under the Atlas Shrugged synthesis around like, if you take one step, you're going to take another, and you're going to slide down that slippery slope until the government controls literally every aspect of your. I mean, the same thing fucking happening with you guys in like COVID. I was told that we were going to have permanent lockdowns, and all of the Democrats and the establishment people were going to basically have us under permanent martial law for the rest of history. And like that was what they were planning, and COVID was just the perfect excuse. And then weirdly enough, like Gavin Newsom, like in California, like lifted the COVID restrictions, like, which I was told by Bitcoiners and stuff at the time that he would never do, because apparently this is what he dreamed of his entire life, which like seems like paranoid thinking. Like maybe you should see a therapist. I don't know. Like that's because it didn't happen. It was proven empirically false. So I'm like I don't get this. Like I don't get Rand, because like this assumption that that government is essentially just like a runaway freight train that will just keep growing. I mean, the United States government has not been a runaway freight train that keeps growing. People think this, obviously has a lot of debt, but the U.S. government has less federal employees. When Trump took office, there was actually less federal government employees per capita in the United States. People can go look this up, Google it, than there was during the time of Ronald Reagan. But like that, no one thinks that. Nobody believes that that's true. The civil service on a per capita basis has actually shrunk over the last 30 years, which according to Ayn Rand should never happen because it's a slippery slope. So like I just like it's a bullshit position. It's obviously bullshit just by observing reality.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like a silly argument, because computers came and
no, it's not. What's silly about that argument?
Technology made. Yeah, I mean, like back when Ronald Reagan was president, everybody was pushing paper around. Now they do it all on computers, and you don't need 5 people to push papers around. Just because there's less government employees doesn't mean that the government's less totalitarian at all. I mean, it's
how has your life been? I mean, I understand COVID was a thing. Like, can we just put COVID aside for a second?
Well, I do want to talk about
sans COVID. How has the government's totalitarian control affected your life?
Well, we have unelected officials auditing other unelected officials, and it's just absolutely insane.
Auditing other unelected officials?
Yes. They're not respecting our data privacy.
Should all officials be elected?
They're not respecting our data privacy.
What do you mean?
There's this guy that owns Tesla that's running around with Zoomers with broccoli haircuts, and they're going through all our personal information. And it's insane.
Dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
You're not familiar with Big Balls and Doge?
I mean, I've heard about that, but like, that sounds insane. But like, I don't like know what that. I mean, that guy is. You trust that guy? You think this is normal? You think this 19 fucking year old like running around like accessing like you like? I mean, like you think that's like you think that's credible?
No, I think there should be a ban on all government employees or anybody touching any information that has a broccoli haircut. It's insane.
What is a broccoli haircut? What are you talking about?
It's these Zoomers. They go and they shave the sides of their heads, and then they get perms on top to make it curly on top. And somebody that's doing that is so deranged.
You're trolling. You're trolling me. You're wasting my time. What is this?
Well, we're getting into silly arguments. I'll tell you, the reason why the COVID lockdowns ended is because there's people like me and people like my friends that smoke cigarettes and think for themselves and listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week. And we said, no, we're not putting up with this. And there's enough of them.
Dude, you realize like right now you're just like making everyone watching my channel like think Bitcoin is insane? Like you realize like I'm telling you right now, like people are looking at this right now and being like, what the fuck is this?
Well, they should probably go buy Ethereum and have fun staying poor.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if that's true, but like, this is not like nothing you're saying. I mean, everything you're saying is just, it's all over the map. Like, you haven't said anything really.
I said Atlas
I mean,
Shrugg's a good book.
I've said some things. What's that?
I said Atlas Shrugg's a good book.
I mean, I disagree.
Why don't you like objectivism?
It's a shitty book.
Why don't you like
did you read my
objectivism?
piece? Did you read my piece, Ayn Rand Clear Thinking v. Ayn Rand? Did you read it? I explained, and so I don't know. It was like a 6,000 word essay on why I don't like objectivism.
Yeah, I read the whole thing.
But I mean, you read the whole thing, and now you're asking me why I don't like objectivism. Doesn't that seem?
Well, can I summarize it?
Sure.
Because you have this idea of the greater good in your head.
Yeah.
The subjective idea.
I actually do.
And you believe that people determining for them what the greater good is a threat to your worldview.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, okay. Like, so this is great. I mean, so here's the thing. I do have a conception of the greater good, which is that, I believe that we should be moving in the direction of some conception of human flourishing, that is characterized by what philosophers call the pursuit of the good life, right? And we all have and I am a liberal philosopher, so I believe that the conception of the good life is malleable. It's like, the good life could be being a gardener, or the good life could be being a philosopher like I'm being right now, or a former tech executive like I used to be. There's all these options, and we want to build a world where where those possibilities are maximized for everybody, without conflict, and towards some sense of shared purpose, because we're social creatures. We speak the same language, we share the same customs and traditions, and we build meaning together, and we watch movies, and these become cultural touch points. I mean, these are all the whole giant texture of what society is towards this conception of a life worth living. And when I look at, say, something like objectivism, which is just egoism as virtue, my response is, I don't see where all that other shit comes in. It's it just sounds like just be rationally selfish your entire life, and everything else will emergently will work itself out, right? It's like, what? No, it won't. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's silly.
I think it makes perfect sense.
You think it makes perfect sense? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to live in a world where everyone is just virtuously egotistical. What? That's the most fuck. You think these halting shallow conversations that Ayn Rand I mean. Why is that? I mean, why is that the world you want to live in? I want to fucking live in a world where people love each other, where sacrifice and virtue and believing in something bigger than yourself. Maybe even working on things that are so big that you'll never get to see them completed. Because why? Because you believe in the human civilizational project. That fills your heart, and that gives you purpose, and that makes you real. That makes you feel like part of a legacy and connected to the contingency of your history. Why do I want to pursue selfishness as virtue? What the what has happened to somebody that they think that that's good?
Because they actually give a shit about themselves.
I give a shit about myself. I think I like myself.
Everything you do It's based
Yeah.
out of selfishness. So let's talk about like my
No, it's
relationship.
not. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. When a mother basically gives up her own life to save her like young child, that's not a selfish act.
No, it is.
When a when even our most like primitive instincts, right? Like our tribalist culture, right? Like we've seen this. We'll see that like alphas in the tribe, like even among like primitive humans, will sacrifice themselves for the greater good of protecting the tribe. They'll give their life. We even in our basal tribal instincts, we have a sense that like sometimes we have to sacrifice ourselves for the tribe, for the community. So no, I do not agree with you that all human action is grounded in selfishness. This is just not true.
It
It's not true.
entirely is.
It's not scientifically true. It's not scientifically true, and it's not. It's like. I mean. Have you do you believe in romance?
Yes.
Okay, so do you not agree that like sacrifice and tragedy are part of romance?
It's not sacrifice. It's a choice of doing what you think
don't.
is
You never.
valuable.
Wait. What do you? What do you mean? Like what do you mean? Like what do you mean? You like. Tell me what romance means to you.
When I take out the trash when my wife asks me to,
Yeah.
and it's super cold
Yeah.
outside and it's late,
Okay.
I make that decision because my relationship with her is valuable. It's driven.
It's valuable to you. It's a transaction. You're like paying. It's a trade. It's transactional.
Well, I mean, I don't really think of it day to day as transactional, but you do things that are uncomfortable.
I hope you've never said this. I hope you never said this to your wife. I mean,
I say it all the time. I say it all the time.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, all right, sure. Okay.
Turns her on. It makes her horny. Like,
well, I'm happy. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you.
And I want her to feel the same way. I don't want her to be living her life for me. I want her to make the conscious decision every day.
Yeah.
That doing things that are uncomfortable for her sometimes, what it shows is that I offer value to her. But if she's living out of this attitude,
when you say offer value, like what does that mean? What is the quantity that you're talking about there behind that word?
Like how many times she's willing to have sex with me a week, or what do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're like.
Well, I want her to show up and take care of my kid and cook me food and appreciate me for listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week. Like, basic stuff like that. Like, I think this idea of love and sacrifice, and this is part of the reason I think why we have so many issues in our society with relationships.
This sounds like a very like shallow existence to me, like the way you're defining it. Like, I mean, I think, I went for a walk this morning and I watched the sunrise, and I thought about like the potential of the day, and I saw people walking around, I saw like lovers like walking hands, and people getting up and going for their like morning routines. And I thought to themselves, like, I wonder what I see that woman, she's like jogging, she's jogging in the morning. What's she listening to in her AirPods? Like, what makes her happy? I'm glad that she looks happy and content. It's nice to live in a world where like people like feel fulfilled. That makes it feel meaningful. That's the kind of world I want to live in. I want to see that. I want to feel that like texture of life. I'm not looking at that person and going, what can that person do for me? Like why that just seems like I mean, it just seems like disconnected and awful, like awful place to live, where everyone is just like trying to figure out like what value they can extract from other people, like what trades they can make with other people. Like, that's not, you really think like why even have kids then? I mean, it's like it's just this just does not seem like a there's nothing romantic about what you're saying at all to me anyways. Like, so, I mean, at least in my concept of romanticism, like in the classical sense of romanticism, that like, Shakespearean sense of it or anything like that. I mean, it's not recognizable to me through any of those frames.
And I don't expect it to be.
Yeah, but then why do you want to force the rest of the fucking world to like live like you then? Because like none of us want to live like this.
I'm not the one trying to force the world to live like me. It's just the way I live, and I don't really care how you live. But I think
Well, I
I
mean,
would ask you.
you did accuse me of Trump derangement syndrome, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
When did I say that? No, I said you
Maybe you
disagreed
did.
with the majority of people in America that voted for
Oh,
Trump.
no, I think no. I think you're. I think you're. Well, I mean, on your Bugle News thing, I think it was characterized as being a late stage Trump derangement syndrome. I'd like to maybe understand that pathology that I'm apparently suffering from a little bit more.
Well, we have a lot of writers at the Bugle, so that was probably one of the other writers.
What do you think? What do you think your other writer meant by that when they said that?
I don't know. They're not here debating you right now.
Okay. I mean, I think Donald Trump is like. I think he's he is destroying this country.
Yeah.
Like literally destroying it.
No, he's a collectivist. 100%. I agree.
Well, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Well, so we agree on. I don't think he's a collective. You think he's not collective? What does that mean? Define collectivism to me. I know a lot about political philosophy, so when you use that word, I have like actually pretty rigorous academic conceptions of it. So just maybe explain to me what you mean when you say that.
Well, he's a statist. He likes to use coercion to accomplish his goals.
What is? Okay.
Believes in the state as a means.
I'm a liberal. Does that make me a statist?
Yeah, you're a statist.
Okay, explain that to me. How am I a statist?
You believe in using the state as a way to coerce other people to behave how you want them to.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that we should use the state to coerce people to follow the law. That's pretty. I mean, like, I think if you were to poll like the population, like 95% of people would agree with that. The rule of law is like the like greatest fucking invention in the history of civilization. I mean, have you read like any political philosophy around this? Like, there's have you read John Locke on this subject? Or I'm just curious, does that ever come up in the 40 Hours of Bitcoin podcasts?
Oh, it definitely has. I've been doing this for years.
Okay.
I'm fairly well read. I won't claim to be the most intelligent person in the world on the subject, but yeah, I mean, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this legitimacy of this institution.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it with you.
Can you explain to me why the Constitution is legitimate?
Because like the polity that it governs considers it legitimate. Of course, that's the only reason. That's the only honest answer.
How many people?
That.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how many people? Agreed and consented to the existence of the Constitution when it was.
Well, do you know what the Continental Congress was?
Mm-hmm. How many people were there?
Those people were representing their polities from their initial colonies. There was they were considered the legitimate representatives in the Continental Congress of the original colonies, so that there was already political legitimacy given to the founding fathers through that, right? Thomas Jefferson, of course, was the representative from Virginia in the Continental Congress, and the Continental Congress agreed to have him. They debated. There was a debate among them, and they all got together. They agreed that Jefferson would write the Declaration of Independence, and there was all this debate that kind of happened. And eventually, they got all together. I mean, I don't know, what I mean. I just what. I mean, I am a scholar of the U.S. founding, so I'm it's just perplexing to me. They didn't just here's the Declaration and just assumed everyone would go around with it. No, there was political upheaval. People were mad about how they were being treated. There was pressure being put on the Continental Congress by the polity, and they were reacting to it. It was considered legitimate because people thought these fucking people these people were their representatives in the Continental Congress. What are you talking about? There was a a grassroots establishment of governments, and they slowly grew, and they had their legitimization mechanisms, and that built up to the original colonies and the Continental Congress, and then Jeffrey, there was like there was like several weeks of like debate. There were some states that weren't ready for independence, and eventually they all came together, and Jefferson wrote it, and they all voted on it on on that sort of famous date, right? That the 4th of July, 1776.
Yeah,
Right.
I was doing some homework.
I just don't like what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, I was doing some homework on you, and I just found this contradiction that I thought was kind of interesting. So I was listening to an interview, and maybe your opinions changed, but I doubt they did. But one of the reasons why you said you didn't like libertarians was because they wanted to put up like no black people signs in their businesses and their private property.
Yeah, that was right. that was a real conversation. So so this is a real story. I'll tell you a real fucking story about this.
Well,
actually.
hold on.
So I was at this libertarian.
Let me finish.
I was at this like libertarian conference like 20 years ago, and I have a really annoying itch on the bottom of my nose there. Sorry. I was at a libertarian conference and found myself in a group of people discussing some things about like the nature of property rights, and I brought up the question of like, would it be acceptable for, say, a shop owner to say white people only allowed? And all the libertarians, they were like, there was like, there was a bit of a debate, but like, one of the people there is actually a pretty well-known person and knows me, and I don't know if I want to call them out or not, but the argument was like, yes, if it's their property, that sucks, but like, of course, like under libertarian property rights, of course you should be able to put a whites only sign and have only whites only businesses. That's your property rights. And I was like, okay, well, that's what happened. That was segregation in the South. So basically you're saying that the Civil Rights Act violated property. And they're like, yes, I think this. And they're like, so basically like you would have just been okay with that system continuing. You have to like account for that. If you're just going to hide behind property rights, that's a very morally suspect position. And yes, like that was like a major breaking point for me in the libertarian movement. That was the story behind that.
Well, why is the Constitution legitimate if it didn't apply to black people?
It does, like it should have, and it ultimately we fought a civil war over it. What are you talking about? Like Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and which ultimately led to the Civil War, and like because it was inconsistent. Like I've written about this. Like what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So is it only legitimate after the Civil War then, when it applied to black people?
What do you mean talk to me about legit? What do you mean legitimate? What does that mean to you?
Well, because people...
I gave you my definition. I gave you my definition, which is that like it's legitimate if you have a sufficient and stable polity to consider it such that like that's just like basic truth of any system of power in the world. Even dictatorships at some point. If like 99% of people were to coordinate somehow, that's dictatorships function in ways to prevent people from coordinating to challenge their power, but like, which makes them illegitimate in my opinion. But like, yeah, if you have a democratically elected government and a sufficient number of people are willing without violence to accept the results of those elections and to live their lives and to follow the laws, it's legitimate by definition. Just because you're like, well, who the fuck says I should have to follow the laws that they voted for? It was like, because you do, because you live in the world. And it's like, and I'm sorry, it's like this idea that like, what are you saying? Like, I didn't ask to be born here, therefore I shouldn't have to follow your rules. Like, that's just antisocial. It's just stupid.
Well, I think anybody has a right to dictate what they believe is legitimate and not.
What do you mean by that? Like, you have a right to dictate that my life is illegitimate?
No.
And then appeal to that like sense of asserted legitimacy to bring about an end to my life? Like what the fuck do you mean by that?
No, I think that's more of your belief system than mine.
No, it's not. I don't believe that the government has a right to kill people. I oppose the death penalty.
Oh, it's just throw them in cages. You limit it to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, dangerous people should be removed. Antisocial, dangerous people should be removed from the situation where they can harm people, but they should be treated with dignity. I actually think we need prison reform in this country. I think we treat a lot of prisoners like shit.
But that was all.
I don't know what your point is.
My point. Well, I don't know why you're advocating for prison reform, because that was all put in place through democratic processes. Why would you need to change that if the majority of people support it?
Because that's what the point of a democracy is. We have different opinions. We change our opinions all the time. We change our tax rates. We change our regulations. We create new agencies. We destroy old ones. I mean, like, we change our fucking minds as a people. We're constantly renegotiating what kind of government we want. That's what a democracy is. It changes. We I mean, that's the point. Like, that's the fucking point. It's the point.
But do you think there's points where people choose the wrong thing and they
Yeah, I think people are wrong to vote for Donald Trump, and that's why right now I'm telling people that I'm using my democratic right as a citizen of this country, my First Amendment right to speak out and tell other Americans why I think were wrong to have supported them, and why I think they probably should be taking to the streets right now to protect their inheritance, their constitutional inheritance, which I think people should care about, because I think the U.S. Constitution is, a sacred. I revere it. Actually, I consider myself a constitutionalist. I think we're probably going to need some amendments after this, once we put ourselves back together, given some of the weaknesses of our system that have been exposed by this entire ordeal. But yeah, I once again, I'm not tracking your point.
Well, can you explain to me why your reverence for the Constitution is different than this cult you're describing around Bitcoin maximalism?
Oh, I mean, because I'm a liberal, and the Constitution is a liberal document. It was.
You just arbitrarily disagree with their point of view, but yours is right.
I don't arbitrarily. I gave a very structured and rigorous critique of their point of view.
But I don't know. Your logic just isn't consistent here, because you say the Constitution's legitimate.
Look. If you want to get down to brass tacks here, like the metaphysics of it and the meta ethics of it, sure. I'm a fucking Humean epistemologist. I think ultimately meaning is subjectively bootstrapped. So if what you want me to admit is can I prove absolutely, to your satisfaction, using pure reason, that my position is correct? No, I can't do that. I don't try to do that. In fact, a lot of my philosophy explains why you cannot do that. Once again, I'm not, you call it arbitrary. I don't think that's quite the right answer. Or the right characterization, I should say. I'm not what you're saying to me. This sounds very juvenile, like somebody who's not even taken 1 year of political science or philosophy. You could first year, political science 101 or philosophy 101 will quickly disabuse you of these very of questions that are worthy of a 14-year-old.
Well, I just don't understand. So you say the Constitution is legitimate. It didn't apply to women and black people.
Yeah, I think the Constitution is legitimate, and I think most Americans agree with me on that, and that is a good sign of legitimacy in a political system, that most people consider it legitimate.
You keep on going back to most people. If most people are jumping off the bridge, would you follow them?
You're actually saying you think that that's what
my mom asks me this question all the time.
This is the logic of a 14-year-old.
No, my mom used to ask me this when I was a kid.
Your mother says that when the 14-year-old is Mom, can I drink some fucking alcohol? And you're my friends drink alcohol. And then she says If your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? It's not the same thing as like talking about the legitimacy of a political
I think
system.
it's a
These are
great
like
question.
there's like a category error or 5 category errors like to work through on this comparison.
It's a great question because
it's
it
not
challenges.
a great question. It's stupid. It's a stupid question.
So you should jump off the bridge, is what you're saying, because most people are doing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a stupid comparison.
Why?
It's stupid.
I mean, how many points in history?
Comparison.
How many points in history have most people been wrong?
I don't. Who cares? What does that have to do with anything?
Well, isn't history important to understand? To do with anything? It has to do with this conversation.
I'm a study of history. You want to talk about history? We can talk about history. I know a lot about history.
Well, how many times?
I don't know. What the fuck? It's just I don't. Who the fuck knows the answer? Nobody knows. What the fuck are you talking about? Doesn't make any sense.
Can you name one notable time for me where most people were wrong?
I mean, most people were wrong about whether the Earth was flat or round for most of human history.
Very good, Mike. Very good.
Okay.
Yes.
You think that, and you think this wins you the argument?
Yes. 100%.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
what did they do? What did they do to people that didn't believe the Earth was flat? What did they do to the round earthers?
Well, I mean, I would note that you're that liberals like me allow people to believe the Earth is flat without executing them. I don't think you're allowed to do that. I believe in free speech. I believe in the First Amendment. So, like, I don't understand why you're using this as an argument against me and my position and my liberal position, which does not allow you to kill people for their views by definition. Liberals have never believed that. That was the whole. What are you talking about?
Well, you keep on saying most people believe this, most people believe that, as somehow that's a definitive answer for what is true.
No, you asked me how legitimacy forms in a polity, and in that sense, a polity is made up of people. By definition, do you agree? A polity is made up of people. Isn't like asking? It's like saying that, like, do most of the atoms in your body agree that you're a human? Like, I don't like. It's like this like weird. It's just like this weird sort of like argument that you're making that I just like don't know why you think it's a profound point.
It's not a profound point. It's a very simple point.
It's a simple point that doesn't mean anything in this context at all. It doesn't mean anything.
If most people jump off the bridge, should you as well?
Well, I mean, like, am I running away from like a fire behind me? Am I in a world where like I don't know what you're talking about?
Do you know why that's an important question, Mike?
No, okay, tell me why it's an important question. Because like I don't think any of the questions you've asked me are something I would characterize as important, but tell me.
Well, I think it's a very important question. I think some of the most important questions are the most fundamental, basic questions. And I think people like you, where you get stuck.
If everyone jumped off a bridge, would I? You think that's one of the most important questions?
Do you know why you ask kids that? Do you know why you ask kids that?
I know. I actually do know why. To demonstrate to the kid using their basic intuition. But like, why are you using the logic that we use on a 14-year-old to convince a like highly informed adult on politics and philosophy? Like, I don't understand like why you don't see how this is absurd.
Because you don't listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week.
A Bitcoin podcast a week. Yeah, I've heard you say this like 20 times now.
I mean, I think this is an important question to ask because you believe the Constitution is legitimate.
Why don't you listen to 40 hours of like fucking Pod Save America a week? I don't know. Like, what the fuck kind of question is that?
I don't even know what that is. Tell me about it.
Okay, I mean, I'd say it's like I don't like, it's a liberal, like, it's a it's one of the most popular political podcasts in the world. I actually don't really listen to it anymore, but I mean, like, why? I mean, like, I don't know. Why don't you listen to, I don't know, like, I don't know, like 40 hours of like audiobooks a week from Audible?
Because it gets in the way of listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week.
What establishes these Bitcoin podcasts as the gold standard for information?
Because Bitcoin fixes this.
Fixes what?
This.
Dude, this is like we haven't gotten anywhere. Like I feel like people are getting bored.
you won't
Are people getting bored?
You won't directly answer my question. Of like,
I was really excited. I was really hoping that you would like actually like have some serious critiques on like against my view on Austrian economics. You haven't critiqued me at all. You've just like gone around and around in circles. Like I don't like.
Well, Austria is a pretty cool country.
Dude, is there something we can talk about where you can actually like challenge me on something?
Well, I have, and you keep on dancing around it, and then you keep on saying...
I'm not dancing around anything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not dancing around anything. I don't like, you're not asking anything like that, anything that's like...
You're a good dancer. I'm sure you dance real well at weddings, too. I'm sure people are super impressed with your dance moves. You said in multiple interviews that you thought libertarianism was illegitimate. Now, let me ask you this question.
Yeah, I didn't say libertarianism is illegitimate. I have friends who are libertarians, and I'm still their friend, and I debate them. Like, honestly, I never said it was illegitimate.
Okay, well, you didn't like libertarians'
views.
You didn't like libertarians because they don't want black people.
I mean, so socialists don't like liberals. Liberals don't like socialists. Socialists don't like reactionaries. Liberals don't like reaction. Who gives like what? Like, this is a vapid point. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Let me ask you this question. This is an important one.
Yeah.
If a black person doesn't want white people going to their business, is that okay?
No.
Why?
No, it's not okay. No, because we're fucking America. Why would that be okay? Have you ever seen a blacks only sign at a business? Is that something you've seen? Is this like a concern that you have?
No, I was just curious.
I haven't seen that. I actually quite like, there's a, I go to like, I love like, soul food. There's like soul food kitchens like here in LA, like black owned businesses. I go in there. Sometimes I'm the only like white guy in there. It's great. Like, I've never been told not to go into a place like that. So what are you talking about?
Do you tip more when you go there?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm a generous tipper for everywhere I go.
Good. That's the correct answer. Because if you tipped more, you'd be racist. I applaud you, Mike.
Okay.
So explain to me.
What are you getting at here?
Well, then why is the Constitution legitimate if it didn't apply to black people right off the bat, and black people can't prevent white people from going to their businesses?
Because I mean
Are black people?
The founders were wrong, and honestly, like, even we saw some of the founders knew this. Jefferson grappled with this, right? Like, he grappled with the hypocrisy of at the time, and he never fully resolved his contradictions with slavery, the slaves that he inherited through his family wealth and stuff like that. I mean, like, there's like plenty of evidence the founders were aware of the hypocrisy on this, and it was ultimately resolved. Lincoln attempted to resolve it, right, with the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's like yes, there was moral hypocrisy, legal hypocrisy, but at the time, everyone knows this. This is like well-known American history.
But the majority of people thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, like, we understand that we have a history of racism in this country. Everyone knows this.
So, what do you think the moral thing to do as a sentient human being that disagreed with the majority of people? What was the moral thing to do at that point?
I just don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm not tracking the point that you're trying to fucking make.
The point I'm making is that you should be a selfish individual. You should read Ayn Rand, and you should think for yourself instead of just accepting what the majority of other people think and what the TV tells you.
Okay, look, this was like, we're about an hour in. We haven't gone anywhere. So is there like any like last remarks that you'd like to make before we finish up here today?
Well, I want to ask you, should you trust the TV if the majority of journalists are in the pocket of the CIA?
No, but I don't like that's a hypothetical. Would I trust them if I knew that? No, like I don't think anyone would. But it's a silly hypothetical. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
But the majority of people do. So how do you tell the difference between a sentient human being and an NPC?
Dude, I want to thank you for coming on. This was great. Thank you for this. Obviously, this is recorded. People watched it. They can make up their own judgments. I'm gonna I'm gonna have some final thoughts. But thank you for joining. And I put you on the hot seat. And honestly, I appreciate you doing that. It was great. Thank you for coming out. But I'm gonna wrap up the show now. Thank you for showing up, Richard. Appreciate it. Okay.
Alrighty, guys. That was interesting. All right. Debate with Mike Brock. He thinks the Constitution's legitimate, even though it didn't apply to black people. He had some pretty interesting inconsistencies there. Pretty obvious he doesn't listen to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts a week, doesn't smoke cigarettes. I think a pretty good description of him is like an Ellsworth Toohey type character, and unfortunately didn't get into that too much. I'm kind of proud. It looks like the stream on Twitter here has got significantly more views than him, which I think is kind of interesting. But I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to listen back to that and kind of get an idea of what I thought. Let's I've got a lot of messages I gotta go through and get the feedback. Is there like a live? Let's see. Are there messages in this live stream that I can read? Elon Tusk, top comment. I should warn you, I am a sophisticated philosopher who has very methodically and rigorously deconstructed praxeological argument. Yes. Podconf. I will be good to see Mike destroy you in your weak positions. Well, fuck you, Podconf. Mike is more intelligent than you. How do you even know you're smart? Well, I'll give him that. He's more intelligent than me. Nick can't mind, smiling. David Freeman, how does he not know sarcasm? I don't know what you're saying, David. There was no sarcasm. Absolutely no sarcasm. Just pure, hard, hidden, journalistic, credentialed facts throughout that entire stream. I don't know why people think this is a joke. This is a very serious, wow, okay. Here we go. Kano Alchemist. Richard won. That's all I needed. That's all the validation I needed. I feel pretty good about myself. I'm wearing a suit. If you go and look at the stream on Mike's Substack, the video, I'm wearing a suit. I got my mushroom shirt on. I kind of like this shirt. I would consider that a Bitcoin podcast. I want to thank you for everybody that tuned in for the last while that I was doing this. Let's see, how long have we been going? 1 hour and 39 minutes, so almost 2 hours of Bitcoin podcast under your belt for the week. It's currently Thursday, almost Friday. It's a good chunk. Hopefully this isn't the first too. I'm kind of interested in doing more debates like this, especially with academics. I'm not really an academic. I'm a credentialed journalist. I do have my credentials. They're not as, I would say they're impressive. I would say I think, like, there's all these guys that they really flaunt their credentials in a way. I think you just got to get your basic credentials under your belt, and like the most valuable credentials that you can have at the end of the day are being a Bitcoin podcaster and being a Bitcoin podcast listener, being a good husband, being a cigarette smoker, being a sentient human being. But this is a really good question. I don't know if I have a fantastic answer for this one. How do you determine if you're a sentient being? I think this is one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Are we thinking for ourselves, or are we like Mike and we just think that we're thinking for ourselves? And I think, like, one of the good ways you can determine whether you're a sentient being is you ask the question of whether you are a sentient being. And you chew on that. You spend late nights outside staring at the stars, smoking a Marlboro Red, and you ask yourself, am I a sentient human being? How do I know? Are all the thoughts that I believe, are they just things that I've been told by other people? Do I actually believe them because I came to my own conclusion? Did I go down? Like, if you listen to 40 hours a week, you'll probably have heard the term first principles quite a few times. Bitcoiners love first principles. They love this. They love getting down to the very basic questions, because it's a very simple idea, right? Very simple idea. So, like, I think this happened. So, like, back in the day, before you had maps on your phone to guide you everywhere, those aren't always accurate, and you still have to question the map sometimes, because sometimes they'll take you in the wrong place, but generally they're pretty good. But back in the day, you either had to write down directions, and then there was a certain point that you could print them out. You could look them up online, you could print them out, but there wasn't really active GPS everywhere. And if you took a wrong turn and you kept on following the directions, or trying to follow the directions, like go mile here and then turn right, and then go mile here and then turn right, you would end up in the completely wrong spot. And what you would have to do if you took a wrong turn is you'd have to go all the way back to the point where you made your mistake. But if you kept on going in the wrong direction, and you're like, I'm following these directions, you'd end up in a completely stupid place. And I think that is what this idea that Mike believes in altruism is. Why do you think so many people are unhappy in our society? It's because they're taught to believe in this thing called the common good. Should you do nice things for other people? Should you act on every impulse that you ever want to? Absolutely not. You have to make calculated decisions based on your own self-interest. Are you going to go and murder somebody just because you're mad at them? That's probably a bad idea. Why that's a bad idea is hopefully they own firearms, and there's a cost to doing that. And if there's not, there's going to be repercussions, right? You have to think through things based on your own self-interest. And like, when you go into a relationship, I mean, can you think about anything as pathetic as going into a relationship with somebody, marrying a woman, not for yourself? You do it entirely for the other person. They call it being pussy whipped, and it's pathetic. I can't think of anything more pathetic than a woman doing that for you. You want the other person to be in a relationship with you just based for you? Or do you want them to have some semblance of self-confidence and self-worth? And they're like, I'm here of my own volition, and I have deemed you to be valuable enough to do things that are uncomfortable for me because I want to, because it's gratifying for me, because I value you. This idea of altruism is insane. It's insane. This idea of being selfless. You know why they like this and why they preach this? It's because they can get you to do stupid fucking things like give pedophiles taxes. Why is our society accepted smoking bans? It's because of this idea of the common good. Oh, secondhand smoke. I think everybody here listening, majority of them, they understand what I'm saying. I got to read through my comments. I might spin up a Twitter space. It looks like I got some people asking me to do one. I'm glad that Econo said I won. I don't really know what to make of. I think this is my first debate I've ever done, and you know, I don't really think it was a fair fight. I mean, when you're arguing with a guy that lives in Los Angeles, like, holy shit. These Californians, man. It's like, I can't look at him and not see Corey Clipston. But anyways, I want to thank you, everybody, for tuning in and say, go be selfish. You know, go do something that's gratifying for you. Like, go be selfish and do something nice for your wife because it feels good. Go take the trash out. Go mop up the floors. Go clean up the kitchen as an act of selfishness, as an act of defiance to Mike Brock. Go be a man. Do your job as a man. It feels good to be a man. It feels good not to be a pathetic pussy. Do it for yourself. Anyways, I want to thank you for everybody that tuned in. This was this is a big one. Listen to my podcast. Rod Palmer and I, every week on the Bugle Weekly, comes out typically Monday mornings. Depends on how late I sleep in. Best, most thermodynamically sound podcast in the industry, Bugle Weekly. We had a big one last week. Kaylee Welch, our smoking hot producer, just came back. She ran off with the Monero guy. Had some personal troubles. I'll let her explain it on the show in the beginning. Go check it out. Boost us on Fountain. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, everybody.